Welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I am here with Heather Havenwood, who is a serial entrepreneur as well as a serial author. You have multiple books out, don't you, Heather?
Yes, I do. Multiple.
I'm excited about that. And some of them were not what I expected them to be when I went and looked up your Amazon page. I was like, oh, you have the sexy boss stuff, you have the female entrepreneur stuff. And then there's also dating advice for men. Is that right?
Yes. Teaching men how to date and find and communicate to women, which nowadays in the current quote unquote sexual harassment world, I feel like it's more needed than ever to how to talk to and communicate to women. So yes, I do have books out like that.
Yes. And we were, just before we hit record, we were talking about the difficulty with corporate work structure, timing, and elementary school scheduling, and just, so many things that we could tackle right now.
We could.
Where do you want to start, Heather?
I don't know. So my name is Heather Havenwood, and thanks for having me, Jen. I appreciate it very much. But I just wanted to, you have a book out called Sexy Boss, How the Empowerment of Women is Changing the Rule Book for Money, Success, and Sex. And in the green room, as I call it, you and I were like connecting and getting to know each other as women do. So thank you. I just kind of I said to Jen, I said to you, I've never said this before, but I just have a view of like a man must have done that. And what I'm talking about is they must have been the ones who set up that elementary school is 7 to 3 and corporate America is 9 to 5, because that doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, I really don't even know the history of that. I have no clue when that started in America, but that's a standard, right? 7 to 3 is elementary and 9 to 5 is corporate, and then right? But it's really kind of interesting because I just have this view of a man sitting there going, well, let's do elementary 7 to 3, because then the woman will get up at like 6:30 to wake up the kid to take them to school, and then they'll come back and they'll make me breakfast just in time for me to go to my work at 9, and then I don't have to deal with the kid at 3 o'clock. So from 3 to 5, she can handle the kid for 2 hours, and then I'll come home at 5. Like, I can just completely see that conversation happening. And they're like, yeah, that works. Let's make the entire standard of the United States of America 7 to 3. So, and then women now in corporate America are trying to deal with 7 to 3 because school gets let out. Like, they let those babies out. And then, I had this thing called a job called 9 to 5, or not even 9 to 5 anymore. It's 9 to 6, 7, 8 sometimes at night. How do you deal with that? And then there's this guiltness. So I think that it's an interesting view of we starting to look at how things are structured. Why did they get structured that way? And it comes from a particular view that probably, like you said, you probably said World War II. That's probably correct back when the Second World War, probably around then. I've never really looked at the history. Let's just say it's probably back then. And that was a particular view of women wanting to stay home. So it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, well, and that's when women first started entering the workforce en masse, because the men were overseas fighting and they needed us. They needed us in those factories. And that was the one time ever that we had universal childcare, was while women were in factories. The federal government paid for there to be childcare at those factories.
And how and who stopped that? Like, I'm just, I
After
don't know.
The war ended? I know. It's like, why isn't childcare part of this? If women are going to be in the workforce, we should be. But even with schools, if you look at who is, like, obviously a lot of women are involved in the educational system. There are lots of teachers, but traditionally men were the administrators. Men were still the principals. Yeah. And on the boards that controlled what schools did. So anyways, we're having our feminist rant about childcare and working and how hard it is, but it is true. I think that is part of why so many women, especially lately since the 2008 crash with lots of jobs being outsourced rather than in-house anymore, and sort of I feel like there was a big restructuring there of for the gig economy that we now see so much. Like, so many of us are working outside of traditional umbrella with some kinds of safety nets. At least we were paying into unemployment and stuff then, but now a lot of us aren't, because we can't fit into
I mean, that's, when we were talking earlier, you asked me about me working from home myself. I've been working from home and some kind of, I guess, since 2001. Now I've had what I call pockets of time that I've tried to go back to corporate America. And I say that because I'm an unemployable. I'm unemployable. Okay. So, and I didn't know I was unemployable. But I had a period in my life where I was, well, first I went through a massive success in 2005, $0 to $1 million in 1 year. Before then I was in corporate America, and from like 97 through 99, 2000. And I was actually #1 in the country in B2B sales. So I've worked in corporate America before. I was #1 in sales, #1 in the country, not like in my office. Out of 10,000 reps, I was 25 years old, and I was beating all the big boys. I mean, my average business colleague was 45 white male, and I'm 25 non-educated and beating them out of LA, New York, Chicago, and I'm like in Fort Worth. So they didn't like that. And so as soon as I got my pat on the head, like, congratulations, you're so cute, it's so sweet, they fired me.
What industry was that in?
It was SBC Global, and at the time it was telecommunications. So
okay.
Yeah, this was cell phones. This is cell phones back then. So business to business sales. And so I beat everyone, and then I was fired. And that was my first inkling. You know, there's moments of time you can look back, you know, the connecting the dots. That was my first inkling to realize I don't belong in corporate America, because why was I fired? People are like, why were you fired? What'd you do? I didn't fit the bill. I wasn't a white dude who was 45 with a gut. That's why. You know, I didn't fit it. I didn't fit what they wanted. Because there was no place to go at that point. They're like, because I said, well, let me go to global sales. And they're like, no, you're a single woman, white, non-educated. No. Right. So, because I actually worked my way through school. Actually, by the time that happened, I got my degree. So I didn't fit the bill. And not till years later, literally this year, did I watch something that Oprah had put out. She talked about how at one time, this is before her show, and I think it was in Baltimore, she was a co-host with a man, and found out the man made like double than her. She walked into the business office, the manager's office, and said, hey, like, you know, like, why is he making double than me? We do the same job. And then the business manager looked at her and goes, do you have kids? Are you married? No. He's got a mortgage. You got a mortgage? You got kids? No. Well, then that's why. You know, now I get that. I get that at a very core level. I was single. I had a nice car, but I was paying my way through college. And because I didn't fit the bill called Married with Kids and had this big, supposedly they have more bills than me, then they deserve the job. I don't deserve the job. They do, because they got married with babies. Like, I don't know what that means, but it's true. And it happened more than once. They actually gave all my accounts to my assistant, who was a man who's 10 years older than me, who, guess what? Married with kids. So it's an interesting, now look, I'm not upset and I'm not demeaning it. It's just like, it was my first inkling into, I don't even call that, whatever you want to call that. I mean, I didn't fit the bill is how I look at it. I didn't fit the mold. And then my next moment was, and that's unemployable. I'm unemployable. So then after that, I tried to be a waitress. I'm really bad at that too. This is years later after my bankruptcy, and I'm kind of like trying to get anything job. And I tried to be a waitress, and then I was a hostess. And I think I lasted a month because I'm a marketer, I'm a business person. So I started telling the manager all the things that they need to do to like be more efficient. That didn't go over very well. And the guy said, look, I actually know you're right. And I actually know that that's a good thing to do. But I'm the manager and you're a hostess, you know? And I'm like, so it's still a great idea. And so then one day I walk in and he just had this look on his face and I just go, I'm fired, aren't I? And he's like, you know, he's like, I like you. I think you're a good person. So I just clocked out and I went back home. And at the time, my boyfriend, I walk in, I just left, by the way. It's only been like 30 minutes. And I come back in and he doesn't move from the couch. And he's like, you got fired, didn't you? I said, uh-huh. He's like, I know, you're so unemployable. You know? I don't do well under this like structure of like, stay in your lane. Only say what you're told what to say. And you're a hostess. That's all you're allowed to discuss. That doesn't work for me. So I think that's what's happening in today's society is women are starting to say, hey, I want more. So I'm willing to work wherever I need to work, co-working space, work from home, Starbucks, I mean, wherever, so they can actually have a voice and create. That's what I work with. I work with creators. I work with people that are business owners and developers, and they're building something and they need help. The number one thing that, again, I told you this earlier, is I'm a huge believer. I just got an email or Facebook message yesterday from a woman, and she's, I'm an inspiring entrepreneur. And my response to them, I didn't respond to her, but in my head, I would have said, don't be an entrepreneur. Like, not a good idea. I want to work with people that they're like, I'm clear, I'm unemployable. I'm clear, I don't belong there. Now what do I do? Great. Talk to me, so that's who I work with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there are a lot of different reasons for that as well. Like, within a lot of the communities that I'm in, a lot of us got pushed out for one reason or another. Either, like me, I planned my maternity leave. I used it all up during my really high risk pregnancy. I was out for 8 months of pregnancy, used everything up. And then I have a special needs child. So I can't go straight back to work the day after I give birth. She's in the ICU, or people who have parents who get ill, spouses who get ill, spouses who come back wounded from war. There's so many different ways that we can end up not being able to only take 2 weeks vacation a year.
Yeah.
We use up all our sick leave on our loved ones, and then we get sick, and what do? I mean, there are just so many ways that it doesn't seem to work anymore for a lot of people.
No, the construct called 9 to 5, work for a company for 20 years, that is completely gone. I mean, it's just that construct doesn't work. Now I'm in my early 40s, so I was taught that. So I was taught, go work for a big company, make them a lot of money. They give you a little bit. We're all happy. And that's what I did. I did that. I made them a lot of money. They gave me some, and then we're happy. And then they throw me out because I didn't look like everybody else. And what you need to know is how I got that job is always a fun story. So I'm now 22 at the time. I go to this job interview, and the guy was like, oh, you're in the wrong place. You need to be here for customer service or something. It was just SBC Global. It's a big company. And I said, no, I want outside sales. And see, what I knew was, because I had to go to school at night, and what I knew was outside sales had more flexibility. And I knew that if I was an outside sales, which is a higher level pay grade, I would have been able to pay for school. Customer service at whatever it was at the hourly rate back then, I knew was not going to cut the bill, right? So I wanted that job, and I knew I wanted to learn sales. So I said, no, I'm here for this. And he kind of giggled. That's funny. No, I'm serious. And then he played it, well, I got to check with my boss, even though he was being interviewed. And luckily, weirdly enough, his boss was a female, Cindy. I'll never forget her, which I was surprised it was a female. And I walk in, and she's this powerhouse. My first time I ever seen a powerhouse woman, like in corporate America in my life. And she's only there for a couple months. It was perfect timing. And she said, let's try it. What's the worst thing that happens? She doesn't do well. You get 3 months to do well. If you don't do well, sweetie, you're like, we can hire you as customer service. And I was like, great. I was there for 4 years and beat that guy. His name was Mike. Oh, Mike. Mike is gone. Cindy had moved on, but she actually went up the ranks. Good for her. And I actually was in one in the country. And I think it's an interesting perspective because first of all, Mike had a bet against me in the office, right? She's only going to last 2 months. So I think it's an interesting play. And it was also, I was around guys. I didn't get any support. The guys are going out having cocktails and beers. Let's go over beer. And they're like, shooting stories, and they're teaching each other and supporting each other. I didn't get any of that. I got a phone book. I got an empty desk. And they said, here's a quota. Go. I mean, that's it. So I think part of it is women jump into things not knowing how to do it. And we just figure it out. So as an entrepreneur, and I tell people this all the time, the days of you staying in your lane and this is the thing you want to do and everything else you outsource are gone. You've got to do everything for a while to understand how all of it works before you can say, now I can hire that person. Then I'm going to hire that person. Then I'm going to hire this person. Even if you have all the money in the world, I suggest doing that. So for women,
there's so many things to learn.
Never end learning. Never, ever, ever end learning. But I'll tell you one story, if you don't mind. One of my biggest stories and that I feel changed my life. It was before I wrote the book Sexy Boss in 2013. Okay. And I wrote the book for me. I didn't really write it for anybody else. I wrote it for my personal story because in 2005, I built a business from $0 to $1 million with a business partner. And I was running everything in the background, and he was the forefront, but we were business partners, supposedly, except he was a lawyer, and I didn't get a lawyer, lesson learned. And I came back one day from an event, everything was gone. He stole the business. He completely emptied my bank accounts. I had no recourse. So my house went to foreclosure started the process within about 3 months, got triggered into that. And then bankruptcy happened quickly after that because he left me with a lot of the debt of the business. So, lesson learned there, right? Lesson one.
What industry was that business in? I'm just curious.
All my businesses have been in information marketing online.
Okay.
So this was an information marketing online business. I got a master's degree in online in 2010. But more importantly, this particular business was about, he was the face, he was the name, he was the brand. And I was running all the marketing and all the structures in the background, which served me because that's what I've done for so many years. And I really liked it, and it's very successful, and he's still very successful today. He actually has a very thriving business. So here's the thing I learned. So here I am going through something I've never thought I'd go through because I thought I was smart. Like I'm smart. That would never happen to me. I'm going through the big BK, right, by myself. No hubby, no rich uncle, no daddy Warbucks, like just me. I had nothing. I had no savings. I had no person I could fall back on and say, don't worry about it, honey. You just chill out and eat bonbons for 2 months to figure it out. I got this. I didn't have that. So here I am. And I remember I'm with a friend of mine, Bill. And he says to me, Heather, pick up the pen and I want you to literally write what I say. I'm like, okay. So I'm writing. He's like, I, Heather, give myself full permission to fail. I couldn't write it. I got to the word to fail and I just started bawling. I'm like, how dare you say that to me, Bill? I'm a failure already. Why are you making me face that? He's like, Heather, you're not a failure. You never gave yourself permission to fail. And it's only in the moment you give yourself permission to fail will you ever give yourself permission to succeed. Ever. And I got that. I really got that I never gave myself permission to fail, because if I fail, I'm equal a failure. That's not actually accurate. Entrepreneurs, by the definition of the forefathers of our country, based on percentages, fail all the time. That's why we have this thing called a bankruptcy law. Disney failed, I think, 7 times. Our current president has failed a couple times. So it's in the failure, but not that you are a failure. It's in the failure of the opportunity and the lessons learned. But it's harder on the playing field of entrepreneurship than it is like on athletes, right? Look at an athlete, look at a golfer, look at a baseball player. How many times do they fail to hit the ball before they all of a sudden have a home run? Do we go, you SOB, you're a failure? No, we're like, he'll be up to bat again, like in the next inning,
That totally makes sense. When you first brought that up, I had a moment because I recently interviewed an ex-professional ball player about his entrepreneurship after getting out of it. And we were talking about how rarefied, we have this whole machine of like high school athletics that feed into this teeny tiny elite that actually ever get to play professionally and get paid, much less the ones who make millions. So we were talking about everyone else basically gets left behind along the way and has to do something else with their lives. But even these people, if they get hurt, like, what do they do the rest of their lives, especially if they didn't really focus on academics or whatever? So as you were saying that, I was like, no, lots of athletes fail. But no, you're so right. Like, they get to practice. They get to practice. Yeah.
Most athletes, if they don't attach, here's the key. Okay. Here's the key. The key is the good athletes don't attach themselves to the game. That's the key. Michael Jordan, okay, NBA star, retires supposedly from the NBA. What does he do? I think
plays baseball.
golf, and then he'd think he did baseball or something, you know, like, see, here's the key, what he has in his head. Who he is as an athlete. Doesn't matter what the game is. Game, ball, golf, whatever, right? He's unattached to the game. It doesn't matter if he plays golf and it's all right. He does not attach to the game of like, I'm a failure. He's who he is as an athlete. So take that onto entrepreneurship. It doesn't matter if you have one business that does okay, and then one does great, and then one fails, and then one gets sold, one flops. You know, it's who you are. You're an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what happens as long as you're in the game. You're in the game, not attached to the game. That's the distinction.
Well, I think it's interesting to look at too, a lot of people who end up being massively successful, and they seem like a, you know, overnight success, a sudden wonder. A lot of them have had failed businesses behind them before they get to
the good ones do. The good ones do. The real ones, the real entrepreneurs do. Like, I love the prophet Marcus. I mean, I love him because he's a true entrepreneur. And he knows that. He knows there's actually, he talks about the percentage of the people that built a business and they give it to their kids and they try to have the kids run it is like extreme high failure rate. And that's because just because they're the children of the entrepreneur doesn't mean that's who they are. You know, it's like an athlete, Michael Jordan, going, okay, I am an athlete. And then now I have a kid. I'm going to go ahead and say, hey kid, you're going to be replacement of me on the LA Lakers. He hasn't earned it. He's got to earn it just like his dad did. Why does all of a sudden he just gets the replacement? You know what I mean? That's what happens. So the point is that we as entrepreneurs, if we cannot be attached to what happens and just stay in the game, right? So the person who I say do not, and people get so mad at me when I say this, I do not like Mark Zuckerberg at all. He's a one-hit wonder. I mean, he nailed it. Timing was right. Everything was right with Facebook. It's right with the time the government wants facial recognition. Thank you so much, Mark Zuckerberg. Now we have facial recognition. So, I mean, right? I mean, it was a one-hit wonder. He's not, to me, a true entrepreneur. Steve Jobs fell on his butt. Madonna fell on her butt. Here's the other thing that, like, I'm saying artists because you can see it differently. Artists like Madonna, she's actually a real businesswoman. The reason why she's also really good, same thing with Steve Jobs, other people I can notate, Michael Jordan. The reason that they're so good is they're prolific in their creating. So Madonna, I do not even know how many albums that girl has. No idea. That girl keeps creating. The girl's like 55. Like, girl, go to Florida. Really? Go have a moto or something on the beach. Like, girl, stop. You know, you're good.
I think she's over 60. I could be wrong. I'm 41, and I remember Starlight, Starbright. I was in elementary school. Starbright, first thing. Oh, it was so good, yeah. And like a virgin, you know, that I was in elementary school when a lot of that stuff was going on. So I feel like she has to be at least 15 years older than I'd like to think.
I'm a huge Madonna fan. My very first concert ever in history of life was in third grade, 1983, Like a Virgin tour with my mother and sister at the Astrodome in Houston. Like a virgin. You know, so I have a huge love for her, but she could have stayed a one-hit wonder. She should have stopped right there, but she's prolific. And that's what Steve Jobs, prolific. He couldn't stop creating. Next iPad, iPhone, this, nonstop. Next level. That's a true entrepreneur. They're not attached to the thing. He could have said iPhone 1, I'm good. He didn't. Next level. It's in that they're not attached to it. So when I see entrepreneur, I'm here in Austin. So there's a ton of what I call entrepreneurs, want to be entrepreneurs, would love to be an entrepreneur. They get really attached to like the thing they're creating. Like, this is it. This is my lottery ticket. And I'm like, you've got to be able to like, it works. Here's another one. Maybe this one will work. I'm not sure. Here's another one. You've got to keep going. There's a lot of albums that Madonna, I can't even tell you what the names are, but she's prolific. You know, she's nonstop, and Michael Jordan's another one, Steve Jobs. So there's a reason there. They're not attached to the game.
What do you think about the personal brand entrepreneurs? Because there, when you make you the product or part of the product integrally, it's when it's not a business you can sell.
Right. So I have one of those.
Yeah.
And if you look at my brand over the years, it's changed a lot.
Okay.
So you got to be willing to alter your own self. I mean, but again, going back to Madonna, just because whatever, she's reinvented and reinvented and reinvented. Like, remember True Blue? True Blue. Okay. That was a whole nother iteration. Remember when she made that transition from being like a virgin girl, remember Boy Toy, and then all of a sudden she was True Blue, so it's this totally different look, and now her look is just awesome out there as well. She went on a cowboy thing for a while, she's constantly willing to reinvent herself. Why? Because she's not attached. She's willing to alter. And Michael Jordan, again, going back to Steve Jobs, again, I mean, if you look at that iteration of him, he's willing to change, alter, test, risk. That's the key of it. And I think that's a really important piece. So in our world, the brand and all that, we have some big ones: Marie Forleo, Ali Brown, Mike Filsaime, Gary Vee. Some people are attracted to that. I've been around a long time, since 2001, and the people that were big in 2001 aren't big anymore. And the reason not because they're not willing to alter. They're not willing to change who they are. Who knows if Marie Forleo is going to be able to run for the next 20 years? I don't know that. I hope she does. I wish her the best. But I really think I don't know that, because are they willing to alter themselves with what's happening in our world? We're constantly altering. We're constantly going to the next level. I personally can't stand Gary Vee. I think he's an SOB. I don't like him. I'm like, F you, F back. I got it. Like, I don't like you. There's nothing about that you that resonates for me on any core level. It works for people. So I just think that you've got to be willing to alter versus stay in the course. Even big names like Rush Limbaugh. I mean, that's huge brand. Okay. Like if he passed away tomorrow, that's it, but he's willing to alter. He's got the same niche, obviously, but he's constantly changing. That's just one that I know. Like Laura Ingraham, she's changed over time too. She's got a particular view. That's her message, but they change who they are and they're willing to alter with what's happening. So that's why.
I'm curious. Okay. So in amongst all of that, I couldn't help thinking of Oprah, because that's a massive person.
Oprah's a great one. Yeah. She's changed a lot.
She has. Yet I've always thought of it more as like growth or progression than like actively changing for
No. Because I have the 25-year edition collection of Oprah. Okay. And I haven't watched all of it yet. I got it for only one reason, not because I want to sit there and watch a bunch of sob stories and cry all day. Like, oh, so, but I got it from a branding view. Where she started, you got to remember when she started in the 80s, she was up against like the Pulvert Show and all these like big time talk shows that were like, they thought, oh, you're going to just, they didn't think she'd make it. And for a while, she kind of bumped along. She's okay, but it wasn't like that big. It wasn't until she shifted and went into more, I remember what she did. It was 1998. And I remember looking at the TV, I was at work, and I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, is that the Oprah show? And it had this like, ta-da, heart, love, inspiration, spiritual. Like, what is that? And she's sitting down in like big plush chairs. Nowadays that's normal. But back then it wasn't like that. Big plush, a beautiful set. I'm here to talk about us and connecting with you, and I love you. People on the talk show circuit were like, what the F is this? Because the talk show market at that point was all about controversy. Bringing someone on to hit people or
who's the guy with the chair?
Took my mama. Yeah. Like,
pick up the chair.
You. That was talk show. It wasn't about connecting and tell me about how you became who you are, Tom Cruise, and how you love your wife. I mean, I wasn't there. So that she took a risk. She talks about all the time. No one wanted her to do it. Then when she shifted out, she's like, no one wanted me to do that either. So she's constantly shifting and changing and upgrading. And the girl doesn't have to. Like, the girl could be like, Cancun had Mai Tais. So why is that? It's because she's not attached to the game. That's why. I mean, Oprah's a great example. If you really watch her career and how she's altered as a person, yes, it's growth and development, of course. But if you look at the brand and how she shifted and the risks she took constantly, it's a pretty interesting story.
I have to admit, I don't have a full overview site of it. I just like tune in at different times and have been like, oh, like her book club. Like, I love her book club. There've been so many times where people have been like, oh, the printed word books, that's over. And I feel like more people than ever are reading. I actually feel like, literacy rates, because we communicate so much by electronics, more people than ever are reading and writing different things. Audiobooks are massive now. I
have an audiobook. You're welcome to go check it out. Sexy Boss.
I do 100 books a year challenge on Goodreads.
Oh, wow. Damn, girl.
So, yeah, I have a few friends who do it too, and we try to switch off one fiction, one nonfiction, and I do at least one by audiobook every week, because I have to read 2 books a week to get through that in the year. So, yeah, like I couldn't do it. It's great. You can't do it without audiobooks, I don't think, because that's my picking up, dropping off the kids at those awkward times that we talked about, and all the things that moms are expected to do. We're in the car a lot, and then exercising and walking my dogs. That's my audiobook time. Yeah. So it's possible.
I have to say about my audiobook, because I have an audiobook on Audible. It was harder than writing the book.
To read it aloud?
Yeah, here's why. So I wrote the book from creation to end, 90 days.
That's pretty incredible. Do you know how many words it is?
How many words? I don't know.
Okay.
How many pages?
Yeah, the only people who think about that are people who do NaNoWriMo, where you're like, oh, can I write 1,666 words?
No, sorry. I know I have 12 chapters and it's 193 pages. There you go.
Okay.
And it's not, it's in regular 12 print, right? So,
okay.
But here's what happened, and it's a really great story. So I walk into this audio guy. He's like, this is what he does for a living. He's an audio radio for radio voiceover. And I sit down and I tell him who I am. And I'm like, I want to do my audiobook. And he just looks at me. He's like, that is not a good idea. And I'm like, why? He's like, there's these things called professional voiceovers, and there's a reason. And I'm like, yeah, but this is my personal story, and I want to do it, and blah, blah, blah.
I love it when authors read their own books. I love it.
Okay. So he says to me, well, I don't know if I'm going to take you on. Let me think about it. And I want you to really think about it. Okay. So we come back in 2 weeks, and he's like, okay, I've thought about it. I'll take you on, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to schedule it out over 6 weeks, and you're going to come in once a week for 2 hours. I'm like, what is up with this dude? Seriously? Come on, it's 2 hours. So he was right. So I'd go in the middle of the day, and I'd come home and crash. I'd pass out. So it's very different reading every single word of the book. Extremely different. And it's your own story. It's your own work. So you're constantly critiquing it. It's your own stuff. You're like, oh, I should probably take that out. It's done. You can't do that. And then you have him. So he's in the other room, and he's seeing the transcript. He's reading every single word with me. And if I missed a word, an A, the, he would yell at me, do it again. And it's in your ear. It's these huge headphones. It's do it again. And you're like, so I do 2 hours. Sometimes I wouldn't even hit 2 hours. Sometimes I'd hit an hour and a half, and I would say, I'm out. I can't do it. So I did that over a period of 6 weeks. We finished it. He edited it. It's not Audible. And I realized there's a reason why there's voiceover people. And then here's a little tip for authors. If you're an author and you're like, wow, that sounds like a lot of work, but people really do like it, especially if we're not, big. They really like it when, like you said, authors do really read their book. Here's a great alternative. It's a middle of the road. And I got this from Tony Robbins, because think about Tony Robbins. That boy is not going to sit in a studio.
He does his intros, though, sometimes.
Yeah, but they're off the cuff.
Okay.
They're short. Because he's a performer. I mean, you know how hard the concentration level is. It's just very challenging. It's a different kind of brain. So here's what he does. He might do his intro, which is not that big of a deal. He'll have someone read the chapter, okay, chapter 1, blah, 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 blah. And then they go, okay, Tony, chapter 1, here's what you kind of wrote, go. And then he does his little thing. He just off the cuff. You can tell it's no script, blah, 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 his thing, right? And he does that for every chapter. So every chapter you actually get the words, and then you get Tony, and then you get the words, and you get Tony. You get the word. So it allows people to get Tony, but it also allows to get the words. And I'm like, I love that. That's really hot. So that's just a little tip for authors who
well, to be honest, even though his voice is very expressive, it's also not the calmest voice to listen to for 14 hours. You know, like I did get his Money Master the Game on audiobook. I also had to buy it because that was one of those books where I was like, wait a minute, what did you say that annuity did? Like, let me look that up. So I did both. But yeah, he did the intro there, and then he said that his doctor said that somebody else had to read the book because he didn't want to damage his voice, and he does so much with his voice already. But it's a really rough voice to listen to for many hours right in your ears.
Yeah. I mean, I think how he did it was great because I know that's the Money Master I'm talking about. He had someone read the book, the content, but he let the expression of him, it's like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But I liked that because I think most authors are very expressive. Most speakers are. So, so I just love that. I would do that for my next book. I would totally have a voiceover to read the book. And then I'm a storyteller. So I'd probably have like, let me tell you how that chapter happened. You know what I mean? So it gives more context from the author's view.
And sometimes authors do say, they break away from the text and then like at the end they'll be like, okay, now back to the text. Like, especially if something's changed since they originally wrote the book. They're like,
yes.
Back when I wrote this, I hadn't had a child yet. I have now. So this is what I think, but okay, now back to the book. So, whatever.
Yeah. I get that. I mean, like I said, I'm glad I did it. I'm very proud of it. It's on Audible. I'm very proud of that. But it was one of the hardest things I ever did because again,
is that the only one you've done an audiobook for?
It is. Okay. It is. It's the only one I've done. I thought about doing the other ones. It was harder because it's my work. You know, you start editing your own head, you know, and you can't do that. It's already done. So it's like, no, you're done.
So about the book, tell us a bit about the book.
So Sexy Boss, how female entrepreneurs are beating the big boys while changing the rule book for money, success, and even sex, and how you can too. The point of the book was actually me telling my personal story of how I was, went through foreclosure and bankruptcy. I was living in Florida on a people's couch, tried to get a job as a waitress in 2007 and 8, which was not a very good time in Florida or the United States per se. And I was living in an area where the average age was 85. That was fun. And finally, a mentor of mine said, you're not a tree, you can move. It's called U-Haul. And if who you are as an entrepreneur, you need to go be surrounded by other entrepreneurs. And I'm from Texas. I'm born and raised Texas. So it's kind of like coming home. I spent my whole life between Texas and Florida. So coming back to Texas was not that big of a deal, but also Austin specifically. I grew up in Houston and Dallas mainly. So coming to Austin, surrounding myself with other entrepreneurs was where I really decided to take my business to the next level and actually start a business again. Because talk about the athlete, who you are as an athlete, or an artist as Madonna, like she sees herself as that. As an entrepreneur, you get to see yourself as an entrepreneur, like who I am is an entrepreneur with or without a business, right? So that you can start to learn to play the game, be in the game of it, and create, build, create. It doesn't matter what you're building, creating, you start becoming unattached to it because it's who you are as an entrepreneur. And I started to get that. I really got that sitting on the beach, completely broke in Marco Island. So I got that. And so when I really got that, I was like, well, what does an entrepreneur do? As mentor said, I'm not a tree, I can move. It's called U-Haul. So an entrepreneur surrounds themselves with other entrepreneurs. Go to Austin. So that's what I did. That was step one. And that's what I did. So the book came out in 2013. My friend, Joe Sugarman, who's the forward of the book, who's the head and founder of Blue Blocker Sunglasses, he looked at me one day and goes, you're like a sexy boss. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, you're sexy because you own who you are as a woman, and you're a boss because you own all areas of your life. Like you own yourself and you know who you are and you're building yourself again. And to me, that's a sexy boss. And I was like, trademark. Right. So I trademarked it and the book was done within 90 days, literally.
That's very, very fast. Did you work with a book coach or someone to walk you through the process, or you just did it yourself?
I did it myself. How I do books, I have a specific 12-step process. I actually work with clients now to teach them that process. But yeah, so I did not know, I didn't hire a coach or any of that. I just did it myself. And that's my dog in the background licking her bowl. Sorry.
That's all right.
But I did it in 90 days and I was ready to have it out of me. It was kind of a birthing process. So the book is really my story. And I started to share all the experiences I went through and the aha moments and the shifting of my mindset that I had to go through. Now, what's interesting about this book is when I have people read the book, and I've had some, people read obviously I've had some people read the book, but a few people read the book and they come to me and go, they'll say something to me. And I'm like, what is that? And I go, it's in your book. And it's just, and I'm like, oh, that's right. But it's part of who I am now. That makes sense. Like, it's like, oh yeah, like everything in here is my life. So it's kind of like, well, yeah, how did you know that? Cause I was like, yeah, how did you know that I think that way? Well, I read your book. Oh, yeah, I just thought you were reading my mind or something. No, I read your book. Oh, that's fine. So it's just like, I literally live and breathe what I wrote. That's before I wrote it. You know what I mean? So it's really just an extension of who I am. And when I wrote the book, just to give you an example, when I wrote the book, I wrote it from an intention of, if one person bought it, one person read it, and if one person had made a difference in their lives, it's a success. I named it and blessed it as success. I did. By one person is a success. See? That's very different than waiting for like, is it number one yet on New York Best? Am I a success yet? Can you tell me see, it's a very different level. And it was interesting because like 2 years later, I was on a show like this podcast, and the woman said to me, congratulations on your book on number one at Amazon. I was like, oh, you're so cute. I mean, you're adorable. It's not like you're being super sweet. You don't have to lie though. She's like, no, it is. And she sends me the link. And I went, wow. Now,
you hadn't been keeping track.
No, because again, I had the intention of one person. So when it became number one, naturally, that was awesome. Not out of some launch 2 years after I published the book. That was more of a success to me than any big launch I could have ever done.
That's really interesting too, because I have lately seen people, I've been to some events, and there are these book in a box people who promise you, pay us $25,000. We'll have someone ghostwrite, and then we guarantee through what we do, like hiring people to buy it or something. I don't know exactly what they do. We'll get you to number one on Amazon within 2 weeks or something like that.
Here's what I tell people. And I'm being honest, and you're going to go, what? I tell them, don't write a book. Don't write a book. You won't make any money. I don't make money from the book. If you're going to write a book, fine, write the book. Don't spend a lot of money on writing the book. Work with someone like me once you write it, and I will teach you exposure and visibility and monetization through the book, never the book, ever. No one ever makes money from the book. They have to learn the marketing of exposure and visibility and using the book to get the monetization. That's what I work with people. I work with people.
That's interesting.
I'm like, hey, they come to me and go, my publisher promised me, blah, 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 blah. Did they deliver? No. Shocker.
Well, since you live in Austin, I have to ask, do you know who the Smarter Artists guys are? The self-publishing podcast people?
No.
Like Sean, what they do is they do fiction, these serial fiction things.
Oh, cool.
Their focus is like winning with the algorithms. They also bought the like how to market through Amazon, the machine that is Amazon, to make money from books. But they have a very specific way of doing it, and it's fiction, not nonfiction, so it doesn't have the other side. But
yeah, that's very different.
Yeah, so like that immediately came to mind with not making money through books. It's like, I know some people are focused on making money through books, but then that's fiction, not nonfiction, and not focused on
I'm talking like business books, spiritual books, diet books, stuff like that they think the book is going to do everything for them. And you've got to actually learn the exposure and visibility piece, where I work with exposure, visibility, and performance and monetization after the book. I work with a lot of authors on that.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, and we are coming up to an hour here. So thank you so much for joining me here. I feel like we've talked about a whole bunch of different topics.
Yes.
But the book is available obviously on Amazon and Audible.
Yes, it is. You can go to heatherhavenwood.com/Amazon. It'll take you right to my page.
Okay. Awesome. And if people heard this and heard the kinds of things that you help people with and want to work with you, how do you work with people? What are the options?
So a couple things. One, you can go to the following, heatherhavenwood.com. In the upper right-hand corner, it says work with Heather. And that goes right to my calendar, and just get on the phone call with me. Especially if you're an author and you feel like your publisher did not help you exposure to the level and the visibility that you wanted, call me. Let's get on a phone call. Let's get you to that level in the media. I love working with women on the media. So there's that. And then also I want to give everyone a gift on your show, which is 3 free chapters of my audiobook, Sexy Boss. You're welcome to go buy on Audible if you so choose. But if you don't want to, you can get 3 free chapters of my audiobook. And here's the following. You can go to this website, and it's going to be my chat bot. And why I really want you to go to experience my chat bot is because I feel chat bots are the future. And so I want you to experience the chat bot. So here it is. It's AskHeatherAnn.com. I'm going to repeat that. AskHeatherAnn, ANN, no E, .com, and it's going to open up Facebook Messenger. You're going to have this entire fun little conversation with my chatbot, and then you're going to get free 3 chapters of my audiobook as a gift to say thank you for experiencing my chatbot.
Awesome. I haven't fully embraced the chatbots, but I'm curious about them. I mean, I've experienced a few people's where I'm like, oh, am I talking to them or am I not? Like, what's going on here? They're asking me questions. But yeah, it does seem like a really interesting way to interact with people. It seems more tailored than just like email blasts.
Yeah, it's a feature. I'm speaking at the Affiliate Summit West in 2018 in January in Vegas about how the death of email and chat bots are the future. It's going to be interesting because Affiliate Summit attracts emailers. Like that's like the thing, affiliates and emailers. So I'm sure either A, no one's going to be in my presentation. It's going to be completely empty, or everyone's going to be there going, who's this jerk telling us that email's dead? So we'll see. I could have a full house or I could be talking to the wall. But either way, I'm going to be talking about the future of chatbots and how we can leverage them as marketers and branders and e-commerce and, be able to monetize that and connect with our clients.
Awesome. I'll have to look into them more then if they are the future. I will go check out myself.
AskHeatherAnn.com. It's better to experience it, right? And then go, oh, okay, I can get this, so.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been great talking to you.
Gratitude. Thank you so much.